House in Baltimore and week. Anything you miss, you can find out in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault. And you never know, we're going to start streaming live on Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNST channel. So subscribe to both of those. Luke is riding shotgun, and this is one of those ones where I think I'm going to let Luke geek it out a little bit because this is right up your alley, right?
What, football?
Absolutely. But I mean, there's a point where like the sabermetrician in you shouts down the back of the bubblegum card guy in me, right? This guy's from Pro Football Focus. It has become a widely used barometer of how individual players perform. Steve Palazzolo joining us here. He is a senior analyst at PFF, and you can follow his journey at PFF_Steve, and I hope I pronounced that right. Dude, you're tall, dude. Like, I don't know, like, what, how tall are you, man? Like
6'10".
6'10".
6'10".
Former minor league pitcher, I just found out.
Had to use the height somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. He wanted to be Randy Johnson one day, right?
Yeah, minus the velocity, but I tried.
Yeah, well, for give us the background, because I don't know anything about Pro Football Focus other than people have started talking about it, and we start viewing it and seeing football a different way. I mean, it really is kind of a groundbreaking kind of thing.
Yeah, so we grade every single player on every play. It started actually over in London. Our founder was Neil Hornsby, and he was that crazy guy who basically said, I disagree with what the announcers are saying. I'm just going to go grade every player on every play and find a way to do this. So, most people would disagree with announcers and then move on. He decided to do something about it, created this company where we grade and analyze how well a guy did his job on every single play, give him a number, and you just kind of you have a game grade, you have a season grade, add it all up in the end, and you have a pretty good feel for which guys played well, which guys didn't, and then in which areas. So that's the basic.
Well, it's an expansion to some degree of the scouting system, right? I mean, scouts put numbers and grades on players when they bring them in. Probably internally, every team is scouting, but from a global standpoint that the world looks at, this has become I know he refers to Pro Football Focus at least 3 times a week,
Good.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, to me, we're talking about something that more so than, I'm a baseball guy, and we have statistics, and now with sabermetrics, the craze over the last 25 years, even more.
Whatever it takes.
There's so much subjective analysis, so much evaluation. Even 5 pro scouts can look at the same player and have 5 vastly different opinions.
Yep.
I respect and appreciate, and I always say, look, I don't think a PFF grade is gospel. I don't think they would even say it's gospel, but it is a way that they're trying to quantify comparing this player to that player. I mean, it's one thing that always cracks me up at the end of every season. We get to the Pro Bowl. We get to selections. We're here in Baltimore. Ravens fans want to say, well, this guy's the absolute best in the league. It's an absolute, he's snubbed. And I say, you know what? I can see that he's a really good player, like Brandon Williams for the Ravens. For my money, maybe the best run-stopping nose tackle in the league over the last few years. But at the same time, I acknowledge I'm not watching the San Diego Chargers every single week. I'm not watching
Damon Harrison from the Giants,
exactly.
who actually is the best run-stopping nose tackle.
But my point is, I'm not that guy that's going to sit there and watch every team. So when I see a site like PFF or Bleacher Report's done their NFL 1000 project, sites that are trying to quantify evaluation and trying to stack up, not just saying this guy's really good and this guy's great. I like the attempt to try to quantify things.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. We train our guys to try to see things through the same eyes so that we can all stay on the same scale. And most fans really only do have a feel for just their players. So Brandon Williams is an excellent nose tackle, but when we could compare him to some other ones,
this year didn't stack up as well.
He's very good. He's a very good player. But I think that is the benefit of what we're doing now. The way we grade, it's pure production. It's not projection. It's not age. It's not technique. It's just, did you get the job? Did you not? And it's also within your system, within your scheme. How well did you perform your job? So yeah, all things aren't always created equal from team to team, but it gives you a good gauge how well a guy performed his job, and then you can add the extra context in. And that's why we don't say that they're gospel per se.
Sure.
We say, look, this guy played at this level in this scheme, and here's the context behind it. Maybe he got a big chunk of his positive grades in just 2 games instead of spread out over the 16. There's always a story behind the number, but I think the number gives you a really good indication of which guys are playing well.
Now, how do you respond? And I think this is a fair question that people ask. You're not in there with coaches, just like mainstream media isn't in there with coaches. Even when we have the access to ask coaches about who missed an assignment, what was the breakdown, you rarely get an honest answer, at least on the record. So when people ask, how do you assign grades that someone did their job if there's some ambiguity as far as what exactly they were supposed to be doing.
You might like the Weddle Elam play when
correct.
Hogan went.
I mean,
and Weddle came out and said it was his fault.
Sure.
I think it was pretty clear. I think we could see that even before
right.
he said that it was his fault. But I actually think both of those guys played it poorly.
Sure.
So,
I mean,
there's always, most of the time you could tell. We go through an extensive review process. It goes. Grade gets put in, it gets reviewed again, and then there's one final call at the end of the week where if we just can't find, come to a determination of what exactly happened, there's maybe 40 or 50 of those plays during the week, and it's usually a pass protection bust or a coverage bust, and those plays we're not going to guess. We might have contacts around the league that can help us out. Those always help as well, but there's only a handful of plays each week I think that are just so difficult to decipher that maybe we don't put a number to it and we just don't guess, and we make it a point not to just kill a guy by guessing. But most of the time I think you can figure out what a guy's supposed to be doing on a given play when you watch either a team enough or you just watch enough football.
Well, in a play like that's just to break that play down. Let's say Brady's errant and the ball just goes long or a little short or Hogan falls or the ball goes off his fingertips. It doesn't relieve the responsibility of the same grade.
They get the same grade. Brady gets a negative instead of a positive. The defenders get the same grade. The thing that they won't get is maybe the stats. The stats are based off of, if you're the primary coverage, you get the stats.
But if the throw's perfect, Brady can be perfect. If Hogan has a perfect throw and drops it, that's a minus for him.
Correct. Brady gets the same grade as if he caught it, and then Hogan gets the negative for
and
dropping
Weddle
it.
Gets the same grade whether it's caught or not because
Correct.
it clearly was a bust.
Correct. Yep.
So it's grading the process and not just the end result, which are all
which
the
is how
stats
we
that
all
we
do.
really
Right,
have
yeah,
in
yeah,
I call it finding the truth in every play.
Sure.
We're trying to figure out why a play works, why it didn't work.
Sure.
And that's why a lot of times
And every coach in the league's trying to do that the day after.
Right. And
literally, right?
Just for their guys, and they do it differently too. They're for us, a 0 is an average or expected grade, and for a coach, if you carry out your assignment, that's a plus. That's a plus, and for us, that might be a 0, and that's where there might be a disconnect, because we call a lot of plays that what you're expected to do is essentially, that's a 0. That's expected. Once you do something above and beyond, you might get a positive. Once you do something below that, you get a negative. So, when you compare us to coaches, sometimes it's just a different scale. And to be honest, I've created a lot of games side by side with coaches. They're more biased than we are. People are always like, "Oh, you're biased against my team," and we hate every team in the NFL. That's standard, right? We're supposed to hate everyone.
Sure.
Coaches are so much more biased than we are because they'll say something like, "I can't expect my guy to make that block. My guy's not that good. He can't make that block. I'm not giving him a negative. I put him in a bad spot." Well, we'll say, "I don't care if you're Joe Thomas. I don't care if you're the worst rated tackle in the league. We're just going to grade you. We're grading what number you are, not what your name is." So.
And the coach has something at stake there because if his guys grade out well, he did a better job as a coach,
and
right?
they're also biased in those other ways,
Sure.
yes. So we just try to give this completely objective third-party look, and we present a number or a couple numbers to the public, but there's definitely a lot of context and nuance that goes into it.
Steve Palazzolo is with us. He is from PFF, and that's Pro Football Focus. If you follow Pro Football Focus, you go out online. You can also follow him out on Twitter at PFF_Steve because you don't want to learn how to spell Palazzolo. Minor league pitcher, right? You played ball, right?
Yeah, 8 years in the minors. Played at UMass Lowell, Division II school, went undrafted, bounced around the minors for a little bit, made it up to AAA with the Giants and the Mariners, and then smoothly transitioned into football.
But never a cup of coffee.
No, I sat in the bullpen for 2 spring training games, though, and didn't get in. So I got called up to 2 spring training games with the Giants in 2009. I believe it was. Sat in the bullpen for 2 games, and that was it.
How's a washed-up pitcher become a frontline football analyst? This is an interesting.
I have no idea. I have no good
New
answer.
Englander, right?
And from New England, yes. I have no good answer for that. I mean, PFF was in its infancy when I initially applied.
Were you a football nerd while you were a baseball
Very
player?
much a football nerd. I was in the corner of the clubhouse watching film and all that stuff. Maybe that's why my baseball career ended a little bit. I was probably focusing a little bit too much on football rather than baseball, and I offered my services, and they were hiring, and it all worked out since then.
Has it been fun to see this thing grow?
It's been great.
I started looking at PFF probably 5-6 years ago, and now you see the mainstream popularity, the mainstream acceptance, at least from some. There's always going to be pushback.
Well, that means you're doing
from
great
others.
work, though, right?
Literally.
Sure. We're working to quiet the doubters and always trying to convince people. But I was a fan before. I mean, that's why I got involved. I was a fan back in 2008, 2009, and I just liked that PFF looked at the game a different way. You could come out of a game. The Ravens back in the day, we saw Bart Scott this offseason. He's like, oh, you guys always loved me. You guys love me. And we said, well, we always gave him credit for blowing up the fullback so that Ray Lewis could make the tackle.
Sure.
So Ray Lewis, not that Ray Lewis was great, but he'd come out of a game with 14 tackles, and Bart Scott might have a better grade in our system. And that's what had me hooked on PFF as a fan back in the day, when you could have the linebacker with 2 tackles outgrade the guy with 14 tackles, because there's something going on from a football standpoint that maybe fans aren't missing, and I think it's just adding that extra insight.
For you and your involvement in this, being a Patriot fan, do you still consider, will you be rooting for the Patriots?
Unbiased analyst at this point. I have no, I'm not supposed to have any dogs in the fight.
I'm going to pull back the curtain. You're going to tick him off here in a second. But 3 weeks ago, how Tom Brady has earned the highest PFF QB grade ever.
I did write the Tom Brady piece. I am a Tom Brady apologist a little bit.
Suck up to him.
He's a pretty good player.
He's a cheater.
He's a pretty good player.
How amazing is it that he's doing this at age 39? I mean, we saw Peyton Manning had the phenomenal couple seasons, first couple years in Denver, and then there was a very rapid decline, and we all saw what he was last year. Brady, he's approaching 40, and he's
getting better.
Still, I mean, it's amazing.
He eats avocado ice cream. I mean, the guy does not. They offered him a Gatorade last night at media day. He said, "No, I need water. I can't put sugar in that body." He just takes
not
such
in this
good.
finely toned, oiled machine.
I'm
right?
gonna kill myself with food this week. I don't care. But look, he has improved. Off the field, he takes care of his body. I think on the field, a couple things he's actually improved at 39. His ability to handle pressure and extend plays. He made it a point in 2014 to say, "I need to extend plays." Our numbers back it up. On plays that last 2.6 seconds or longer, he has the best passer rating in the NFL, whereas a couple years ago he was like 28th or 29th. So that ability to extend plays, because he's such, he's good at pre-snap, catch the ball, find the open man. He's always had that.
Right.
But the ability to get out of the pocket and extend plays, he's improved. His downfield work has improved. So his decision-making has improved. He's already been, one of the better decision-makers in NFL history, but he never put the ball in harm's way this year. Those 2 interceptions, those were legit. He did not have interception luck, so to speak, the type of thing that we quantify. Oh, this guy, he only had, Nick Foles a couple years ago, he had 2 interceptions, but probably about 15 that should have been picked. Brady doesn't have that. So, at 39 years old, he's still finding ways to get even better.
And I guess the other part of him is the cast around him. I don't think it's improved. I don't think you become a better cast when Gronkowski's not there anymore.
No, right? He's still been great, even without Gronk. Now, his numbers with Gronk are always better because that guy's unbelievable. Brady can throw the same slants to 10 different guys. Gronk is going to get the most out of that slant.
Is he the number one mismatch in all of the league in your mind, Gronkowski, as a weapon?
I think he is, especially with New England, the way they use him too. Line him up in line because he can run block too. I think that's the biggest part of the mismatch. You have to account for him in the run game, so you have to have linebackers and safeties taking it, looking at him, and then the Patriots will split him out wide, and here's your linebacker on him. We saw that in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They put KJ Wright on him, deep ball, he's past him. So absolutely, Gronk is the guy. But Brady's done a good job of getting Chris Hogan involved, Julian Edelman, all those running backs out of the backfield. So even when Gronk went down, the fact that Brady's playing so well, his numbers didn't take a huge hit.
Steve Palazzolo, it's his first visit here. It will not be your last.
All right.
We'll bug you for
here
sure.
all week.
Senior analyst at PFF. You can follow them at ProFootballFocus.com. Luke, I'm leaving it to you to wrap it up. I mean, you can go as long as you want to go because I know he wants to get down and get real nerdy.
That's fine. Let's do it.
I'm going to go get a drink.
Ask all the questions. Ask all the questions everybody wants to know.
I know you do a lot of draft work. I know you were at the Senior Bowl this past week, and I'm checking out your work right now at ProFootballFocus.com. 10 prospects for the NFL draft who helped themselves at the Senior Bowl. Just give us a few guys who really saw their stock rise at the Senior Bowl. Ravens have drafted many Senior Bowl products over the last 5-6 years, so anyone here is a little more interested hearing what happens at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, the Ravens probably going to be looking at some corners and wide receivers in the draft, and it's a good draft, I think, especially for corners. But 2 wide receivers that stood out, Zay Jones from East Carolina, great hands, showed it in the game. So good at catching the ball in traffic, and it's not a top-heavy wide receiver class, but I think that helps him move up maybe into that second, third round range. Cooper Kupp, another wide receiver from Eastern Washington, FCS kid who dominated every time they played FBS competition, and it was big for him to go down there and play against some of the better corners in the nation and show well. So it was a really nice job by Cooper Kupp. And then Kareem Hunt, a running back who, a lot of big names in the draft with Leonard Fournette and Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, but Kareem Hunt might be the best senior running back out of all of them. Incredible balance, showed that in the game too. 87 to his 115 yards after contact, forced 5 missed tackles. That's how he played his entire career at Toledo. So all those guys offensive skill positions that really stood out so far.
It's interesting you mentioned Kareem Hunt because I remember last year you guys were very high on Kenneth Dixon.
Yes.
You had him, I believe, as your number 2 running back overall in your draft
there,
rankings. Yeah. So, I mean, that's something I cited. And Kenneth Dixon for the Ravens got hurt in training camp. And
started to show it down the stretch. I think he started to show what he can do.
Yeah, so you mentioned corner and wide receiver. What other positions in this draft are looking strong as far as there's more depth there this year than, say, the last 2 or 3 drafts, let's say?
Safety for sure. Safety's the class. The last 5 years, I feel like there hasn't been a good safety class. This year, you've got Malik Hooker from Ohio State. I mean, he's got the closest thing to Ed Reed skills. You guys are going to be hearing these Ed Reed comparisons just because he makes plays similar to what Ed Reed can do. I would never put that comparison on a guy, but closest thing to Ed Reed skills that we've seen. Jamal Adams from LSU, a guy that can do it all at safety, play in the box, play deep. Nate Gary from Nebraska is a sleeper. Jabril Peppers we'll hear quite a bit about, trying to figure out where his fit is. I still think he's a safety.
I was just going to say, where do you think he fits?
I think he's a safety. I think he's not great taking on blocks, but when you leave him unblocked, when he's that extra man, whether it's a weak side linebacker or a safety, he can make plays. He's explosive. I don't know that he's going to cover slot receivers. I think people want to call him Charles Woodson or something. He's not. He's closer to Shaq Thompson. I don't have a clean comp on Peppers, but I like him covering tight ends, not necessarily slot receivers. So I do see him as a box safety type of player.
Yeah, interesting to see those hybrid kind of safeties. There still aren't too many of them yet,
right.
But you feel that's – I know the Ravens tried to do that with Anthony Levine in training camp last year. Didn't really see the field, but –
what they wanted Matt Elam to be
a
few years
ago.
It
just hasn't happened.
Yeah,
but.
I mean – The NFL has such good hybrid offensive players. This is one of those drafts that they can kind of turn the tide a little bit defensively because there's so many good corners and so many good safeties to maybe offset some of the difficult matchups on offense.
We need some help on the back end.
Yes, just get all your cornerbacks and safeties. That's it. And don't let
an edge rusher would help too.
I keep mocking a guy like Tim Williams, Charles Harris, and our guy Gordon McGinnis, who's a resident Ravens analyst.
He's a Ravens.
I know Gordon.
Yeah, Gordon's the man. So he's always begging me to give him edge rushers in the mock draft. So I'm looking at Charles Harris from Missouri, Tim Williams.
How many
Alabama.
of you are there at Pro Football Focus?
Oh, like a lot.
There's
about 40 guys that actually do the grading, 40 analysts, but now we have a whole sales team and a marketing team. We have about 70 full-timers, I think it is, in the company.
Based where? In London?
Most in Cincinnati. We all moved to Cincinnati.
Oh, you live in Cincinnati?
Yes, I moved to Cincinnati
Sorry to
last
hear that.
year. I know. That's
Cincinnati
right.
makes me
I'm a Bengals guy
flatulent
now.
when I'm there.
Bengals game.
Skyline.
Skyline.
Oh,
yeah.
There's better places than Skyline, I've realized.
That's what everyone tells me.
I love Marvin, but you can have Cincinnati. It's not my thing.
It's a little downgrade, I think, from Boston. No offense to my home city of Cincinnati now, but
this game itself, and I know you're not predictive in nature, but certainly make a case for the Falcons to win this football game Sunday.
Well, the offense is spectacular. They found a way to beat and create mismatches against every defense they've played, and as well as the New England defense has played. Those playmakers in Atlanta, they're going to be tough to stop. They're going to be very difficult to slow down everybody. I think they'll get a lot of focus on Julio Jones. It'll be Matt Ryan. If he plays up to his level that he's played this year, they'll score some points. Defensively, they have to figure out a way to slow down Brady and the Patriots. I don't have a great game plan for that unless you get a guy like Vic Beasley, have a dominant game up front, a Rashad Hageman, Grady Jarrett maybe. Those guys, the blueprint to beat New England, have 4 unbelievable pass rushers. A lot easier said than done, so they need all those guys to step up front for Atlanta because they like to rush 4 and drop 7.
Think the game's close?
I do. I think it's a lot of points. I think it's close. I keep predicting New England 31-27. So I think we'll see both offenses move the ball, and it comes down to Brady in that pass game maybe making a few more plays in the end.
Your people have had enough parades.
My people?
Yeah, the New Englanders.
They just want 5. I think they just want 5, and then they'll settle down and spread the wealth a little bit more.
My wife's from New England, so anytime I see anybody in a Red Sox hat, I'm like, it's one of your people.
We had
your people.
It was long suffering for a while, though. Long suffering
I liked it
until
better
about
then.
2001.
It was a lot more fun.
Since 2001, it's been a little ridiculous how many championships.
Yeah, and the weird part about it, they're still whining even when they win. You know what I mean? Like, all they do is win.
Oh, yeah. It's a terrible fan base, terrible group of fans.
That's why you left them. You're in Cincinnati now.
Yes, I'm all
where they know about want
Bengals
and hunger.
babies now.
They have the hunger there. Steve Palazzolo joining us here from Pro Football Focus. You can follow him at PFF_Steve, as well as at Pro Football Focus. Great first visit, man.
Yeah, thank you.
The big
Thanks for
man
having
in the
me.
house. You right-handed pitcher? Is that what you were?
I was righty. Yeah, I'd still be pitching if I was left-handed.
I can't throw a party right now. I'm done. I'm washed up.
Oh, yeah, I am too. But I stopped. I was done.
We'll step out. We're here at Super Bowl 51. We're in Houston at the Convention Center, the George Rufus Brown Convention Center in downtown Houston. Get ready for Sunday's game. We'll be here all week. You can find Luke at WNST.net, as well as Baltimore Luke. I am Nasty at WNST.net. And together we're out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.